You want to write a book, but are unsure where to start. I don't know exactly why you subscribed to this training, but perhaps it resonated with you because you have a valuable message or story to share. Fascinating characters have built an entire life in your head, and they're begging you to let their story out into the world. Perhaps you want to increase and share your authority and credibility in your area of expertise. I totally get it. I'm Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a best-selling author of 3 books, and I've been exactly where you are right now. I began my own publishing journey in 2003 when self-publishing was an absolute no-no. I had to navigate the entire publishing process on my own and then get creative about getting exposure and, as a result, sales on a shoestring budget. Back then, social media wasn't at our disposal, and no one was yet talking about the incredible importance of an email list. Further, authors hadn't yet begun to look at book publishing as an entrepreneurial endeavor instead of simply an artistic one. Recent surveys have illuminated the fact that 85% of people believe that they have a book inside of them. But would you believe that only 1% ever writes that book, let alone publishes it? Why is that? To be honest, knowing how challenging it was when I got started compared with the tools and techniques available to authors today, part of me can't imagine why everyone in that 85% hasn't started working on a book. But the truth is that I know exactly why they haven't, because they've told me. Having talked to thousands of writers over the past 12 years, I hear the same challenge again and again. As overwhelming as it is to think about writing a book, not knowing what to do after the book is written to get it into published, sellable form is typically overwhelming enough that it stops nearly everyone from moving forward. They think, I'll look into it another day. And they do that over and over and over again. But here's the other thing, the exciting thing. The tools, resources, and marketing vehicles available right now to publish and be successful on your terms truly make this the best time in history to become a successfully published author. In this training, you will learn 5 costly book publishing mistakes to avoid in order to streamline your approach, save you time and frustration, and increase your credibility in the marketplace. They're not to be missed, and they have nothing to do with emptying your savings account, having a famous cousin or aunt, or being unnecessarily controversial. In fact, these 5 strategies are so simple that they're often overlooked, and that's bad, because overlooking them can start your journey off on an incredibly rocky road that would have been awfully easy to steer clear of. Let's jump right in. Costly mistake number 1. A project focus that's too narrow. A narrow or niche focus for a book is great, necessary even. A narrow focus for a book project, however, is limiting. Here's another way to think about it. You're going to discover quite quickly that I'm a big fan of analogies. Financial advisors recommend investing in more than one fund. You don't have to take their advice, of course, and you may occasionally luck out. More often than not, however, success comes from placing your eggs, or in this case your book, in a variety of baskets. The riches are in the niches, and even greater riches are in a diversified approach to those niches. When thinking about your book project, don't think, I'll write it, launch it, sell it like crazy, and move to an island in the South Pacific. Instead, think about different places and ways to sell it. Consider partnerships. Consider speaking engagements, seminars, workshops, or retreats. Consider add-ons. What could you sell with a book as a complement, perhaps a workbook or an accessory of some sort? Think of the project as a house. You don't have simply the obvious front door, which in this case is a simple book sale, as a point of access. You also have all the windows and, if you get really creative, the chimney or dog door. Not thinking broadly enough was definitely a mistake I made early on. There are many authors and entrepreneurs you can learn from in terms of cross-marketing your products and services, as well as identifying unique ways to position your product in the market and generate buzz around it. Costly mistake number 2, don't design your own book cover. Designing a book cover sounds easy enough, and there are plenty of templates out there to assist you, so why hire a professional, right? Wrong. Believe me, I understand the value of not spending money where it doesn't need to be spent, but I also don't believe in cutting corners. Designing your book cover yourself is most definitely cutting a very important corner. First impressions don't get a second chance. Cliche as it is, a book is most definitely judged by its cover. Hire a designer to create your book cover. It doesn't have to cost a fortune, and it's money well spent. Costly mistake number 3, no professional editing. I hear it time and time again. Everyone says I'm a good writer and I have great grammar. I don't need a professional editor. My response is the same. I'm sure you're an amazing writer with great grammar, and you must hire an editor. There are many types of editing, and proofreading is merely the tip of the iceberg. One fact I often discuss with writers is, in many cases, there are words or concepts in our heads that don't make it onto the pages of the book. We can actually read a paragraph of words and hear in our heads words that aren't on the page because they are in our heads. Remember the last time you were having a conversation with a friend and after a brief pause you completely changed the topic? In your own mind, you made the segue, right? But did your friend say, "Wait a second, what are you talking about?" This happens to you, right? Well, we do that when we write also. We forget that we haven't let our readers know that we are switching topics. For this reason alone, an editor is critical to alert you to points, paragraphs, and occasionally entire chapters that are unclear and or poorly organized. Editors are invaluable for ensuring that your book is not only grammatically correct, but structurally correct. Editors ensure that there are no holes. They are adept at thought organization and ensuring that your points are made clearly enough to be understood by the reader. If J.K. Rowling, Elizabeth Gilbert, James Patterson, and Stephen King rely on editors, and they do, shouldn't you? Finding the right editor for your project does not have to feel like searching for a needle in a haystack, but make no mistake, not having a professional edit is not a good idea. Costly mistake number 4, not doing due diligence on publishing paradigms. Let me clarify. Hybrid publishing is the term I use for all-in-one book printer services. These are companies that print your book and also offer services such as ISBN assignment, cover design, editing, and marketing packages. The term hybrid publishing is actually gaining industry traction at this point. BookBub, for example, asks new partners whether they are published traditionally or as a hybrid or indie author. As a standalone or self-publisher, you will source those experts yourself. Both approaches have pros and cons, and the key is in determining which is right for your project. As a standalone publisher, you get to source the best resource for each component of your project. You aren't stuck with the talent that the hybrid publisher has on staff. As a con, you have to source the best resource in each category, which means that you have some research to do. But not to worry. I have trusted resources in each area that I can wholeheartedly recommend in order to shorten your search and lighten your workload. Costly mistake number 5, no launch strategy. Here's the truth. The writing and the selling are the 2 hardest components of producing a successful book. The publishing is actually the easiest part because it's a step-by-step formula. The reason writers get so tripped up over the publishing portion is that they don't know how to navigate it. But in order to make the publishing part worth it, it's important to know how you plan to get your book out into the world. I myself remember being so focused on getting through the publishing process that I neglected to think about what I'd do when the books ultimately showed up. Initially, I was my own distributor, and I was so busy reacting as a distributor that putting time into a coordinated, thoughtful launch plan with 3 kids under the age of 2 at home was virtually impossible. I felt like I was constantly behind the proverbial ball. It's critical to recognize early on that once the book is written and published, the real work begins. This is when the rubber meets the road. Because even if you've published this year's Harry Potter or the 4-Hour Workweek or You're a Badass or Big Magic or heaven help us 50 Shades of something or other, if you don't usher it into the world in a strategic way with laser focus, the project will quickly become anticlimactic. Excitement and anticipation will turn into exhaustion and disappointment, which is completely unnecessary and avoidable. One of the greatest benefits of self-publishing is that you aren't held to traditional publishing's 1 to 3 week timeline during which you must meet sales expectations. What does this mean? You could come out of the gate with approach A and then hone it, add approach B, take a nap, launch approach C, and so on as you determine the approach or approaches that work best for your book and your market over time. But it's critical to plan your approach A while you're working through the publishing process. While the cover is being designed, while the book is being printed, you're designing and putting into place the pieces of your marketing plan. Whether it's Facebook ads to get an interested readership list started, or letting your email list know what's coming in bits and pieces, or building an email list from scratch, or researching podcasts or radio shows to propose segments to, the best plan is one that's finely tuned and ready to go the minute your book is. Now, I would love to hear from you. What questions do you have? Go ahead and like, comment on, and or share this video. You can post your comments or questions right below. I read every single one, and I'll reply to as many as I can. In the next training, we're going to dive into one of my favorite topics, cover design do's and absolute don'ts. You won't want to miss it. So keep an eye on your inbox, and I'll speak with you again soon.